A fossil fuel-free America. Joining me now to talk more about that is South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. So what is the president talking about? We're in this incredible transition. So in other words, these high prices for gasoline are intentional?
Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway from his statement, that he is telling the American people they're doing this to you on purpose, that the transition period is being imposed by policies coming from the Biden administration. It's not Putin's fault, that this is a conscious effort by the Biden administration to destroy fossil fuel production in the United States, to get away from fossil fuels, and you're living this experience. This is an irresponsible shutting down of oil and gas production in America, making us more dependent on oil and gas from bad actors, and it's destroying the American economy. But the takeaway is what you said. This is being done on purpose.
This is really extraordinary to me. And now we're talking about food shortages as a result of what's going on in Ukraine, the death and destruction out of Putin's hand. Are we going to see a food famine in some parts of the world?
Well, you've got 40 nations depend on grain from Ukraine, 50% of their grain coming from the Ukraine. That's going to have an effect. We've had 3 famines in Africa in the last 10 years that have been historic in nature. So we're going to have a food shortage throughout the world, and food prices are going to go up. But at the end of the day, every time energy costs go up in America, that drives up the cost of shipping food and growing food. So if you could just change the cost of energy, lower the cost of energy, you would dramatically lower food prices in spite of the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, but look, on day one in office, the president canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He canceled any drilling on federal land. I mean, that was the beginning of sending prices higher. And inflation started at 1.4% when the president took office. Look, policy, when it's bad, it results in bad outcomes. And I want to get your take on the tragic shooting this week in Texas. Our hearts go out to the 19 families. But it quickly turned political. Democrats are demanding stricter gun laws in the face of 19 children dead. Here's Texas Governor Greg Abbott firing back. Watch this.
Let's talk about some real facts. There are, quote, real gun laws in Chicago. There are, quote, real gun laws in New York. I hate to say this, but there are more people who were shot every weekend in Chicago than there are in schools in Texas.
So, Senator, what about that? And during that press conference that Governor Abbott gave, you have Beto O'Rourke running over there and losing it, blaming Governor Abbott.
Yeah, number one, I think what Beto O'Rourke did tells you all you need to know about the status of his campaign. He's a desperate politician doing despicable things to try to stay relevant. And we need leadership at a time of crisis, not showmanship. And all I can say, we have a constitutional right to bear arms, but it's not unlimited. Count me in for trying to have better laws to detect these events before they happen, allowing cops to intervene when somebody's showing a danger to themselves or others. But gun violence is a problem in this country. There's no question about it. But the constitutional right to bear arms does exist, and there has to be limitations on what you can do. So all I can say about what happened in Texas, it breaks my heart. But I don't know of any law that I can pass that would deal with a man, 18-year-old man, shooting his grandmother in the face, going to a school, locking the door, and killing every kid in the class. But one thing I want to tell you and everybody listening, I don't know how to fix this.
Well, I mean, we are cherishing the border agents who stopped this death and destruction. It was a border agent because of obviously it was close to the border. But look, Senator, I think people are struggling to understand why there is not more security, armed guards.
That's right.
At schools.
The one thing is in common here is that the people who do this are disturbed, obviously, but mental health is not the answer to this question as much as just pure evil. So the thing that I'm focused on is how do we kill these people when they come into the door or neutralize them before they kill a bunch of kids. That's one thing we can do better. So I'll count me in for trying to beef up security at schools so these guys get stopped when they first come in.
Let me switch gears, ask you about what we learned this week in the trial of the Clinton lawyer, Michael Sussman. We learned that Hillary Clinton approved giving the Trump Russia lie story to the media. She approved it herself, and that Michael Sussman billed the Clinton campaign on the very day he talked to the FBI about the fake Trump ties when he said that he was there as a concerned citizen. Will we see any repercussions for the FBI or even for Hillary Clinton? You worked on this for years, and we talked about this over a several-year period, that this was a total lie, and it had a massive, massive impact on our country.
It's funny you asked. That's a good question. I asked Director Wray about the Horowitz report that you covered in detail, indicating 19 violations of FBI policy regarding the Carter Page warrant. What's the storyline here? That you had a lawyer for the Clinton campaign apparently was able to dupe the entire FBI into believing that Donald Trump had a relationship illegally with a Russian bank that was a bunch of BS. Here's what I think. They wanted to believe it. The best explanation for all this is that every time there was a stop sign, they ran it because they wanted to get Trump. There is no other explanation. How could they miss all the warning signs about the dossier being a bunch of bull? How could they buy hook, line, and sinker what Sussman said and not pass on to agents that the tip came from a lawyer of a campaign running against Trump? They wanted to believe it. The only explanation I can give you is that the FBI agents and the head of the FBI at the time wanted to get Trump, and they ignored every stop sign because they didn't want to stop.
Well, we talked about this, and you told me about the Igor Danchenko interview years ago.
Right.
He talked to the FBI in January of 2017, and he told them, look, we embellished it. We lied. We were having some beers, having some fun with friends. And yet, what did the FBI do? They went ahead and continued to pursue FISA warrants against Trump officials. So, look, where's the accountability for the FBI? How come it has become so political?
Well, you know, I think Director Wray, I asked him a question about this. He says a terrible chapter in the history of the FBI, and we fired people that were involved, but there's more accountability coming, I hope. There may be an FBI agent under investigation for withholding exculpatory evidence from the court regarding Papadopoulos. I hope Carter Page will sue the FBI for the warrant that was issued. In January and March of the year in question, the FBI was told by the subsource that the Russian dossier was a bunch of bar talk, and they continued to get warrants after they were told that. Comey and McCabe said they never heard that. I have a hard time believing that. So I hope there'll be civil litigation, and I hope there'll be more criminal investigation, and hope people will be prosecuted who took the law in their own hands.
All right, we'll be watching that certainly all summer. Some think there will be more indictments this summer. Senator, it's always great to catch up with you. We so appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.